Well, Tesla stock seeing another wild week of headlines for the car maker when Elon Musk renewed focus on his enterprises. We're looking under the hood of the next phase for Tesla. Doug Clinton, Intelligent Alpha founder and CEO, joins us now to discuss. Doug, it is always good to see you, my friend, on the show. Let's start, Doug, right there. Trump, Musk, this joint event today. As we were just talking about, Musk now returning full-time to work. How important is that, in your opinion, for Tesla shareholders, Doug? How excited should they be about that return?
They should be absolutely excited, Josh. And I'll just say for the record, I've been punched by my 5-year-old. They are absolutely more ferocious than they look. Whether that's true or not, who knows with Elon. But investors should be very excited that he's coming back and now has this new laser focus. And the way that we've sort of thought about this is that you look at famous people, very successful people throughout history, there tends to be this arc that they go on. You go from sort of obscurity to hero, ultimately to villain, and then you kind of figure out, can you become hero again? I actually think Elon's about to embark on this redemption arc, maybe the likes of which we've never seen. In some ways, I think about Steve Jobs, who went from hero, who created Apple, kind of lost his way a little bit. We talk about being lost in the woods. He started Next, made Pixar, an incredible company, then came back to Apple with an incredible redemption story. Elon's story is different, but I actually think the pattern is maybe a little bit similar, and I think it all starts with Tesla.
Doug, on that redemption arc, though, let me get your take on this. And our friend and colleague Praz did bring this up. This report today, Doug, in the New York Times, about Musk, saying his drug use was more intense than previously known. His drug consumption went well beyond occasional use. I'm just curious, Doug, as an investor, you read a headline like that, you read a story like that, and what you make of it. Does that impact your willingness, your interest to commit capital in Tesla? Does it not have any effect? Walk me through your thinking.
I think it's something that you have to always note. And for the record, I mean, these sorts of allegations and suspicions have followed Elon for a long time. This is not the first report about him potentially using illegal substances. And so, from our perspective, the way we have always thought about it is that even amongst people who are wired differently, Elon is wired even more differently. And as long as the drug use is not to an extent where, it's impairing his function, I don't think it is. I think you have to kind of at least put that in your fact box and say this is something that we need to monitor. But I don't think it is a totally excluding event for him. And again, I'd point to Steve Jobs, right? I mean, there's been a lot of talk in the past about him. He used LSD. He admitted it. I don't think he was a regular drug user. But I think a lot of these very visionary people do tend to maybe dabble in some of these substances.
Doug, I want to broaden the conversation out a little bit here and go a little bit more broader tech and maybe focus on semis and some of those other Mag 7 like NVIDIA. I'm curious what you make of the news coming out today from China, right? Of course, we have President Trump essentially threatening to maybe escalate those tariffs again, maybe that pause that they're working on and that deal isn't going so well. How are you viewing where the U.S. sits with China and how much it actually matters to where you're allocating money in the tech space?
It's absolutely important. I think that over the last month and a half, one of the key lessons investors have sort of learned is that everything is a negotiation when it comes out from this administration. At least that should be the initial assumption. And so when you hear this news out of China, things being frustrating, maybe more tariffs coming or other actions, I think you first have to say, okay, is this sort of a negotiation to try to get things back on track, to get into a more favorable place? And most likely, I think that it probably is. So, you kind of set it aside at this point and say, if you think the world looks, maybe 10% plus on tariffs from where we were at the beginning of the year, in the next 3 to 6 months, if that's the major change, and you probably don't change your investment strategy that much. I think one thing that's really important, you mentioned big tech, and I think for NVIDIA specifically, is, deals are the love language of this administration. And I think a question for NVIDIA specifically is, can this administration find a deal with China that will also allow them to open up the country again to NVIDIA selling their products there? That'd be good for the stock. I ultimately do think that will happen. It could be a catalyst.
I like that. A negotiation could be a love language too, I guess, depending if the deal comes or not. A quick question on the broader trade, and also just wanted to go back to Tesla for a minute as well. Do you believe that the rebound we're seeing, the buying the dip rebound pattern retail investors have been engaging in is a reflection that the taco trade actually exists? And then what are you looking forward to, or what are you looking for in general out of the Robotaxi launch in Austin?
I would say for the Robotaxi launch, we want to see sort of a reiteration of the timeline that Elon put in place. So, we're expecting, right, 10 to maybe a dozen vehicles initially, very small initial test, and then thousands of vehicles hopefully by September. That's sort of the stated timeline. I think to the extent that we get a reiteration of that, that's good for the stock because often timelines obviously get pushed with some of these launches. So that'd be the big thing I'm looking for. And then secondarily, I think back to that redemption arc, right? What is Elon's mindset? How does he kind of talk about, maybe this new era for him, refocused on his companies? And I think that Robotaxi is probably the number one thing on his agenda right now, if you look across all of his companies. In terms of the stock, I think Elon is one of those characters where we've always said, I think it's silly to ever bet against him. I don't think that means you should blindly sort of bet on him all the time. I think you want to pick and choose your timing. We've seen the stock go up 25% here in the last month. So I think there is some optimism coming back into the stock. It's hard to see the fundamentals really giving the stock another boost. So for me personally, we don't own the stock in Intelligent Alpha at the moment. I'd be a little bit more cautious and probably look for a dip to buy. But again, this could be a meme stock. If we go back to the Elon redemption arc, this could just purely be almost like a meme coin, just betting on Elon.
Doug, as we mentioned, you are the founder and CEO of Intelligent Alpha. And what you do over there, so that viewers understand, is very interesting. What you're doing is you're using large language models to pick stocks. So your models right now, Doug, they're telling you to own what?
NVIDIA is our top stock holding right now. And ironically, gold is actually our top holding, period. And so what our portfolio looks like right now at Intelligent Alpha with our models is we almost have this barbell approach of AI as sort of an offensive, aggressive bet. Our models believe that the AI trade will come back this year. And on the other side of the barbell, we sort of have some defensive positions in gold, some European equities that I think were undervalued, obviously, earlier this year. And so far, that has treated our portfolio quite well. We've done well against the S&P 500 with that sort of barbell approach.
Doug, we are always lucky to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh.